Welcome, guys, to Expressions of the One. My name's Chris Hanlon, and today I have a returning guest, and I'm really excited that I have Rebecca Dawson with me here today. So, welcome, Rebecca.
Hello, Chris. Always a delight to have conversations with you. Yeah.
For those of you that haven't seen our first conversation, I'd highly recommend going back and checking it out. And for those that are joining us for the first time, Rebecca is a world-renowned speaker. She's a coach. She is just an amazing. How would I put it, Rebecca? You're a wealth of wisdom and knowledge that has the ability to tap into higher levels of consciousness or expanded levels of awareness known as the masters. And Rebecca has graced me before, and we've sort of looked at a little bit of that you might want to go back and check out. And today with Rebecca again, we're going to sort of dive into some other topics that are maybe, a little bit more personal in nature as far as how we're navigating reality right now, because Rebecca's work focuses heavily on the new reality that we're all stepping into, the most amazing time that we're living in as a human, I like to put it. And we'll just see what arises. As I said, this is about spontaneity, and I'm just excited to have you here again, Rebecca. It's a real honor.
Oh, me too. So thank you. I'm excited to hear what will unfold today because, it's also for us, and perhaps your listeners aren't aware that you and I have spoken at length in the importance of creating something that is nourishing and joyful and expansive for yourself. And then that's the vibration that invites everybody else to come and engage with. So really, we invite all of these beautiful listeners today to join in our conversation, but ultimately we're doing it for our own experience.
Well, that's a great point. I went back and listened to our first recording. I'm like, oh my goodness, like this is everything I needed to hear right now. And I often think about when I've tapped into the energy of some of the great masters that I resonate with, even masters like Jesus, I started to understand that he was living his reality for his expansion, the expansion of his consciousness. And by doing that, he had this ability to heal others or create miracles for others to witness. But ultimately, it was all for his own expansion. Is that sort of the vibe you get with life?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think in that, there's something really important about the realization that nobody is ever, as in the human form, anyhow, the human expression, there's never really a point where we come to where we have everything and we can then give it away. So we're always in a space of not knowing. And in that space of not knowing, that's the grace and that enables a new knowing to arise. And it's interesting because when I was much younger, a young child or a teenager, I used to think or have an awareness one day I will probably be a spiritual teacher. It was just always in there. But there was something in it that was a little bit grating for me. And of course, as I emerge in my own experience through life, I realized that it's not so interesting to have all the answers or to believe that you're the expert and you have the wisdom and then to share it with others. It's more interesting and stimulating to continue my own expansion into consciousness by using conversations or having conversations with people from which arises new awarenesses for myself.
That honestly, I think it's one of the most appealing parts of the way in which you express wisdom is I find it really refreshing, that aspect that I know when you've come out of the channeling state, you're in awe. You're humbled by the wisdom that has come forth, which to me, I resonate with personally because I don't feel you are sort of a teacher sitting up on the pedestal, sort of, hey, this is the wisdom, it's like, hey, this is expressed through me just then, and my mind is blown, and I think that is exciting because it's not an end goal then, there's not a body or a knowledge of work or wisdom to study and to, ingrain and embody that's going to get you to enlightenment. It becomes, a continuous unfolding of the light that we are.
Yes, I love that. And it's actually our ability to let go of what we know and to sit in that open space of not knowing that is the doorway to what we call illumination. So it's the opposite, actually. The less we accumulate, the more open we are to stepping into that awareness. So
Wow.
I love beginning with I don't know. And I don't know has become deeply comforting over the years.
Well, that's a really interesting point because we were chatting before just off camera about, um, I guess, the evolution, I would say, of my masculine consciousness because I know up until about 28, 29, I thought I could logic my way through anything. Like I totally believed that my intelligence and, the way I think about the world, I could actually think my way through life. And through some, bigger life challenges, that was shown to me that there is no way in the world we could logic our way through life. And so it's been that flip, and it's still a very much a process for me about going, oh, how do I feel my way through life? And then how do I actually get into the I don't know and be okay with that? And I think, is there something in us, do you think, as humans, that the knowingness is sort of based to our biology, that sort of survival mechanism of like, if I know something, then I can predict and then I can sort of keep myself alive a little bit longer? Or where do you think it comes from?
Well, it's such a great question because that energy of the I don't know, if you really distill it, it's not really a point of despair. A lot of people might say, well, I don't know is the giving up and the surrender. And I think surrender and relaxing into greatness happens after you've become comfortable with I don't know. I don't think that the surrender happens in an anguish of I don't know. And how I would like to deepen that is that if you think about I don't know as a curiosity as a child, which is the essence of source consciousness, wanting to explore more. And I think it was in the Bible somewhere. If you want to enter the kingdom of heaven, be ye like children. So the I don't know, the essence of that is a curiosity, a spark of curiosity. And it's that spark and that interest in life that is being so present that it ignites something new. And so the I don't know can either be a sense of defeat or it can be a stimulating sense of curiosity. And when it's a stimulating sense of curiosity, that's when new awarenesses arise. That's where we actually give reality room to show us what else is beyond what we already thought we knew. Because our vision and the way we look at life, it has to create space for new things to occur. And the mind doesn't really create space for things. It wants to fill space, whereas newness occurs out of space. So the curiosity factor in I don't know, how exciting. I don't know what's going to happen today. How exciting. I don't know what's in that present under the Christmas tree. How exciting. That's the vibration that leads us into illumination.
I love it. Like,
Yeah.
it's interesting you say that. I've literally this past week been waking up, and previously, it'd be like, okay, what have I got on today? Like, what clients am I seeing? What do I need to do with my employees? Like, what have I got going on? And something changed this week where I'm like, hang on, I actually don't know. Like, yes, there's certain tasks and elements as a father, a husband, a business owner that will show up during the day, and there's certain things in the calendar, but how can I just sit back a little bit and go, you know what? Magic can occur today. Magic is occurring in every moment of every day, really. But, how do I get out of that structure, And that sort of, it's fascinating that you bring it up in that way today because I think it's a bit of a practice. Like it's not necessarily something that we've been conditioned over most of our lifetimes to sit in the I don't know-ness.
I would agree. And it's interesting because, in my teens and getting into my 20s and up to 30, I used to get overwhelmed really, really easily. I'm a Virgo anyway, so, over organized, right? Organized within an inch of my life. And not only that, but also organizing everybody else in my life as well. So that was my mind's way of feeling that I was safe in my environment. If I could predict things, then I would be safe. And that came from a fairly unpredictable sense of childhood. And of course, what I realized was that that's what was actually making me stressed, was knowing everything that was going to happen. It was a funny thing. So it was only when I got to the point where I actually felt more space, because what I was looking for in trying to organize things was where are my spaces in the day where I don't have to do anything. That's
Yeah.
what I realized I was really looking for. So once I realized that what I was yearning for was the space, I started to focus on, I wonder what's going to happen with this space. And so that's when spontaneity started to arise, where I feel safer in the unplanning and safer in the response, in the spontaneity than I do in the structure, because it gives more room for something greater than I could perceive to happen. And which is why when I do conversations like this, or when we run seminars, or even when we do retreats, I never know what we're going to do, because it gives space for something greater than what I could perceive to happen to happen. So the safety now is in the not knowing.
Yeah, yeah. A very tangible example right now is we're renting and our house is up for sale. And, you know, with three kids and my wife, usually, and I'm so proud of her, she's come so far in her sitting in that I don't know-ness. Because I think, you know, I talked about the masculine. I think as a feminine, quite often there's a safety, security element to structure and to knowing what's going to happen. But we've all just been sitting in this. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if it'll sell. I don't know when it'll sell. If it does, I don't know what next. There's a perceived lack of rentals in the area I'm in, all this sort of stuff. But I've actually sat in this, it's either this or something better. Like there is, if I can sit in the not knowingness, it really, I can see how that's starting to open up more possibilities. And I think
Right.
even in science, you know, they talk about what the atom versus, you know, the particle versus the wave, and that the reality that we're seeing is like the 0.0001% of actually what's available within the spectrum of reality. And I'm always fascinated by it. Like that's such a small number with such a huge amount of possibility, but we're just not attuned to that right now, or haven't been to this point.
Yes, yes, and we don't direct our focus towards it unless we take our focus off the points of reference we can see and into the open spaces. Because I think science is also, of course, discovering that space is not empty. It's actually full of infinite possibility. So if we want to upgrade our experience, or if we want more than what appears to be currently on offer, which is for sure in your situation, you want more than what currently appears to be on offer. When you focus on spontaneity and being available for what you yet can't see, that's where you begin to see it all and view it all. It becomes available to you. So we always say, the masters always say, spontaneity is the key to creation, because nothing can be created unless it's in the now moment.
So powerful. I've got a belief that that's why a lot of people, and it's not always the case, but a lot of people that struggle to have children, or people that are struggling, I think it's a lack of spontaneity. I think there's too much structural planning or pressure that gets put on it, because I know personally, my three children, there was no planning. Like it was, you know, it was love. Like it was just that expression of love in the present moment. Um, you know, and then it's like, oh, we've created a new life, you know, which I've always just found obviously a miracle, but just beautiful not having that pressure, you know.
Well, not having a sense of desired outcome, and not having a sense of creating a reality that your mind already has a reference for.
mm, right.
Because the evolution that we're experiencing is a collective consciousness at this time. It's not just individual, but it's a collective humanity. Our evolution is now creating things that we don't already have a reference for. And that's what enables us to experience more of life. And that's what enables the blueprints for collective experience to be enhanced. Because if you're imagining what your life is going to be like, I mean, there is a period of time, especially in the last 40 to 50 years, where that was very, very prevalent, very helpful for people in teachings about manifestation. If you can think it, you can create it. But remembering, of course, that the mind only has reference for what it already has experienced from memory. So the evolution will demand us to sit in spaces of I don't know and spontaneity, so that our consciousness can begin to create things our minds don't currently have reference for. That's really important.
It's
Really important.
it's so powerful, Rebecca, because I feel that's the contemplation for me of late. Like, what would it be like to experience something I've never experienced, and collectively never experienced? And I know my mind can't get itself around that concept. Like, it struggles a little bit, other than when I think about some of the great inventions. And I actually saw a great reel the other day from AI, and we talk about the joke between the masters talk about what the joke in the naming of artificial, like nothing being artificial in that intelligence. But this particular system just said, electricity's always been here. The information network, which is known as the internet, has always been here. It's just that our human awareness wasn't at a level where we could perceive it. And so that's what I sort of tap into when I'm thinking about what you're saying around like experiencing the new and new creation. Is it's already there, but we haven't been available, I guess, in your parlance, or we haven't been able to perceive potentially some of this newness that's coming our way.
So one of the big shifts here is that we've relied solely upon our mental clarity to be able to perceive things. And imagination's been summarily dismissed. So we have imagination / intuition that is a way of perceiving what is possible. But we have something even better than that. We have a more powerful tool for that perception now, and that is the feeling state in our body. Because you can, even if when you're talking just now, Chris, about, oh, there's so many things that are possible yet and available that we can't yet perceive, your mind doesn't know what they are, but you know what that might feel like.
Mm.
Because even as you were just saying that, we could see your field begin to light up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where perception begins. Because if you can feel some kind of energy, some kind of uprising, some kind of life that's happening within you, just entertain the possibility that there's all these things available that you can't quite see, but you're about to. That's the vibration that then enables you to see it.
Mm.
So the wisdom of your body can perceive it well before your mind can.
Wow. And that to me, Rebecca, sounds like powerful insight for anybody that's feeling stuck in their reality, or that like it's the mind that's stuck, is what I'm hearing you say. Is that if someone's feeling that heaviness, or whatever the feeling state of the mental feeling state, I don't know if that makes sense, but the mental side of it, if they can tap into their body, they can start to feel, is that what you're saying? More of that infinite
Yes,
possibility, not try and
yes,
think their way through it, I guess, back to the start.
yes. And that is the vibrational compass that then enables your mind to be able to imagine it, and then your physicality to be able to perceive it so you can actually see it. And this is what's so exciting about this time, is because if you give yourself permission to not know, that's the first thing. I don't even know what I want anymore. There's nothing here that I want. I don't want anything on the menu. Get me out of here. That's the first thing. Recognize that there's nothing on offer that you want. Secondly, get curious about what is possible in the spaces between what you can see. And the third thing is to actually start to feel the excitement for that curiosity.
Mm.
And when you've got those three things, this is where those spaces between reference points starts to open, and the new things start to come out, and they come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
They come out of nowhere.
Literally and physically.
Literally come out of nowhere. Physically come out of nowhere.
That's, would you say that's why meditation's a powerful tool in the beginning, to create a bit more space potentially?
It's really to start to know the difference between where your energy is and where you exist, and this tool of the mind that you have.
Mm.
So once you start to realize that you are not the mind, but the mind is a tool for articulation to help you to refine shaping your reality, then you can really start to have some fun with it.
Mm.
Like a sculptor with his chisel and hammer. The chisel is the tool that shapes the block of marble into something. But unless you're aware that that tool is even there, or that you're directing that tool, you're just going to feel like the tool itself and
Yeah.
take all the credit for what's happening in your life.
Yeah. I had a teacher and a friend once. He used to say that, um, the mind was like a beautiful servant, but a tyrannical master, and
Yes.
Yeah, I've loved the master's teachings that once we can tap into that feeling state more and that present state reality, the mind comes along rather than thinking it's driving. And I've been sort of thinking about that a little
Exactly.
bit lately. Like, you see in the cartoons where there's a kid with a false steering wheel in the passenger seat, thinking they're driving the car while it's really the parent. I'm like, oh, is that what the body's intelligence is actually the parent, it's the innate wisdom, and the mind is like that little kid just sitting there going, I'm driving, but really, as they look over, you can go, oh, actually, no, there's an intelligence greater than me that's actually directing this right now.
Yes, yes. And interestingly, when you identify as the mind, and I am my mind and I am my thoughts, the way in which you're going to be driving that car is not going to be probably the most efficient
Mm.
or safe for everybody around you, which is
Well,
really
that
interesting.
brings me to a point, Rebecca, because so as you said, the last, say, 50, 100 years, manifestation, imagination, repetition, like writing your goals and, forcing towards them and taking action and all those sort of things have been very prevalent teachings, I would say, on the planet. Um, the mind obviously has a role to play in manifestation. As you said, it's like a refinement tool, if I'm listening correctly. So, what sort of that? I guess I'm looking for a bit of a bridge in how to utilize the mind and imagination and things such as that as just a tool or as something that is a companion to that innate wisdom that's expressing.
As we suggested, the mind is all about refinement for your creation. So I think one of the challenges that people have is that where does the idea for what they want to create generate from? Because oftentimes it's outsourced. I see this over here in this reality. I see this person doing this, and I want that. Or I know that a nice shiny red car. I've seen that, and I want that. So when you're outsourcing for your inspiration, you're really just recreating what already exists. And your mind is excellent for that. So, creating reality with your thought when it comes from an outsourced inspiration or reference point from your reality gets collective consciousness and Earth as a whole into repetitive cycles of experience. So you get the same things happening over and over and over and over again. And in terms of evolution or what humanity calls karma, that's not necessarily very expansive. So the big leap that we're having now is that it's getting harder to manifest from the mind for outsourced ideas. People are saying, why isn't this working for me anymore? This used to work great, because your consciousness is wanting to evolve you beyond what's already available, so that you begin to bring new things into this reality and new experiences that will expand your consciousness, not just put you on rinse and repeat. So, because of that, the inspiration needs to come from the I don't know, that feeling state and that excitement. And then you can apply the mind as a tool to it. But invariably at this time, that going into the I don't know, the spontaneity, the excitement for it can then generate an inspired idea. And then the mind can be brought to it. And that's how we create new things in the world. Because if you're just trying to do it from an outsourced inspiration, that's like a conversation between the chisel and the block of marble. There's going to be a lot of friction there. And it can be
Mm.
hard work, and it can take a lot of action and energy, and there's process involved. But when it comes from that beautiful divine space within, and we're just excited, we don't know what it's going to be. And then the mind says, oh, we just want to strike the marble right here. And then suddenly the form takes shape. So that's the difference between plugging away and chipping away and more effortless divine creation.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. I know I shared on a call we had last week. I think it was that when I've looked back at all the major shifts in my life, my mind could never have planned it, could never have seen it coming, and that's, I think, that's been the beauty of, some people might call them a quantum leap, like it's not as though my mind has created it or forced it. It's actually just seen in retrospect how that's happened. And sometimes that's meant a breakdown of certain things, or a crumbling away, or a creating of that space in a way that was uncomfortable for the mind. Um, but what blooms out of it is often the most beautiful and beyond what I could ever have imagined my life being. And that's I would say that's why I'm where I'm at today, you know.
I love that. Because you know what? The mind doesn't really know what it's doing. It knows what it's doing in terms of trying to recreate an image in a block of marble, but it doesn't know anything about divinity. It doesn't know anything about creation. It only knows about execution of creation. And that's a very, thank you, that's a very powerful statement. Why do we say the mind only knows about the execution of creation? It knows how to take something infinite and alive and make it finite and fixed.
Mm.
So it can take an idea for a sculpture that arises within you and it can create it fixed into material matter. And at that point, it's been executed, it's dead.
Yeah.
I
Wow.
know that sounds dramatic, but it's true. So
Yep.
the mind executes creation, but it's not responsible for the ignition of it.
Mm.
And that's so important because we want to keep that spark of excitement and curiosity for something alive. We never want to get to a point where we say, it's dead. Why do we say that? Because so many people place their sense of accomplishment and success on completing the things that they've started.
Mm.
And in this energy and at this point in evolution, all of the impetus is on the ignition and not a lot of impetus is on the execution. And we say that to bring comfort to so many people that are listening who have inspirations and great ideas and don't follow them through. Because there's something in your consciousness right now that wants to get you so used to being in that energy of being alive and creating and doesn't want your attention to be on the finishing of the job.
Mm. Man, that's going to be tough for people to swallow right now, Rebecca. Like it's freeing,
It
but
is.
it's yeah, I know the way I was brought up. You finished all the food on your plate, for example, right?
Yes. Yes.
You never wanted to be seen as a quitter. If you've committed
Mm-hmm.
to something, Chris, you
Mm-hmm.
follow through on that. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I'm not alone. I'm sure that's a collective pattern that many people have experienced in their life.
Of course, but it keeps you in contracts that we are outgrowing too quickly now.
Yeah.
Because the rapid evolution of consciousness now means that week by week, you're expanding and therefore new things are becoming available. What do? Do you go back to where you were and finish that before you move forward? Or do you have the capacity to allow that to continue to unfold because you've ignited it? You don't need to oversee it. It
Yeah.
now exists in collective consciousness. It's been seeded. And now you can move on with seeding something else. And this is what's happening for you personally right now, because there's a lot of things that you're wondering if you've got the energy to finish
Yeah.
because some more things are calling you.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of sense of responsibility on yourself to finish things that you started when your consciousness is really saying to you, let that continue to unfold in its way. Now get on and ignite something else.
Well, I appreciate that wisdom, and I appreciate you helping me ignite something else, because the inspired action to start a podcast was something that had been welling in that collective field for me for a while. And yeah, with the support of people like yourself, it's 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 scratching a creative itch within me, or that expression that is growing over here. And I appreciate the permission, as the word I love to use again, to allow the rest of my life to unfold. Because that was a question I had that I think many others might, is like, well, I have responsibility. I have other things over here. So what I'm hearing you saying is just trust the consciousness of that creation in itself will do what it needs to do so that you can continue to move forward whilst that, it can have its life. it can grow and expand and do whatever it needs to, or complete in a way that is most optimal. But as long as we're continuing to express and expand, that's going to be the highest good for all concerned.
Yes, I mean, when it comes to your children, you ignited them. Is it your responsibility to see them to completion?
Once again, I have no idea what that looks like. The mind, actually, that's a very easy
Well,
one
you
to go.
can't.
No, and I don't want to.
And why would you?
Yeah.
Because you ignite them into life, and their consciousness is like a fractal, and it will continue to unfold in this realm and other realms, in
Yeah.
this life and other lives. And so everything that you do, every project that you do, whether or not your mind believes it's complete, you've set off a fractal of evolution that keeps going. It doesn't end. Life never ends.
That's so incredible. Like I'm just want to sit in that for a second because
Yeah.
that's the essence, right? Like that is the that creative expression that I believe is God, is the divinity of infinite possibility.
So here's where people get stuck on that is that we then bring it to things like trauma and karma, and that things need to be finished off. Things need to be closed out and completed. So that's one way of looking at things. But we look at life like that in a circle. It's got to come back, life and death, and it's two-dimensional.
Mm.
Okay? And the more expanded we become, we start to see that everything's a spiral. And so we realize that the game is not completing things, because otherwise we're in a never-ending, perpetual loop of life and death and karmic experience. And when does it ever end? But rather, it's our opportunity now to bring greater awareness to these themes. So we're not trying to finish something, we're just trying to elevate our awareness of it.
Mm.
And that's evolution. And this
Mm.
can happen in your personal life, like you go back and you look at a relationship or a business idea or something that you began that didn't really complete in the way that maybe you thought that it should. You now have, in your evolving perspective, a different view of it. That's the evolution. The evolution is always about the perspective, not the closing off.
Yeah. Yeah. I can think back to so many either relationships or, as you say, careers, even, or just points in my journey that the perception I had at the time of the change compared to the perception I have of it now I would say wildly expanded as far as how it's helped me fractalize into who I am today. Like it's been part of that journey, but at the time it was usually quite intense or, there was like emotional trauma or whatever involved. Whereas now when I expand out, I'm like, I can really see the beauty in the evolutionary step that potentially that played in this fractal that I'm living out right now.
Yeah, and most of that stress that happens at the time and the trauma is based upon this collective belief that we're meant to execute things into permanence.
Mm. So in a relationship, then, to keep a relationship new, it's valuable to be able to sit in the I don't know with your partner and explore that together rather than having, that fixed idea of what your relationship will be potentially.
Yes, and this is such a good one. And I experienced this myself. Actually, this is why I'm giggling at it. I wonder what aspect I'm going to be engaging with today. I wonder how my partner or my relationship or this person in my life will present itself today.
Mm.
I wonder how I will engage with this today, because it's that supposition or that presumption of permanence. This is who they were yesterday. This is how they're going to be today. That's where we get stuck,
Mm.
because that doesn't make room for evolution.
Oof.
It's so interesting, and particularly, and I know that you'll understand this, Chris, when we say that we're getting more and more aware of the different aspects of ourselves as we become more multidimensional. I'm this flavor today, and then I'm this another day, and I'm all these different parts of myself. I'm not just one thing. But to embrace that in somebody else is a challenge for
Yeah.
humans, because we like to map things out. We like to map people out. I get to know you. I got the map. I know exactly where I'm going and what I'm doing, and I can predict the pitfalls and dangers. And we can navigate this person
Yep.
because we have a map. But that's not helpful these days because people are evolving so quickly, and so many of their different aspects are coming in now that it's really a question of, I wonder what I'm going to discover today.
Wow. Comes back. I know in our first conversation, we talked heavily about roles and, identity.
Mm-hmm.
And as you're saying all that, I think about my kids and I think about when I'm less playing that role of parent and I'm just present, I actually, there's more space, there's more
Yes.
potential to experience different aspects of themselves. And I think you do anyway. The kids, I don't want to say force us, but because of how quickly they evolve in those formative years, whether we like it or not, we get to see a lot of different aspects. So I think it's a great practice for me personally to be able to look at my kids and remind myself that, yeah, they're growing and evolving as we are. We've just sort of maybe blocked that side, or the mind has tried to map something much more structured rather than going, hang on, like if they're evolving at that rate, why am I not evolving at that rate? I am. Like I'm here to witness that in them. And I'm in awe of my wife, like her growth. I feel in the last 5 years, I feel has been exponential again, and getting to witness that and to be still surprised in our relationship by her showing up differently in more expanded ways is it's such an honor to witness because I know you've talked about that we're moving out of this cause and effect mirrored sort of reality, um, but I guess it still shows me an expression of myself that's growing as well. And that's what's really beautiful. And that's the newness, I think, in my life is my family actually helps me to bring a little bit more newness and a little bit more space in my reality each day, which is that curiosity. Like I have no idea where my family's going next.
And your view of them will continually change based upon your own state of awareness and consciousness, because as you know, you're at the center of your reality and everything exists because you view it.
Yeah. Well, you brought it up earlier. So I have a question then around blueprints and around individual and collective blueprints, and also probably I would say systems of knowledge that have been on the planet, such as astrology or human design or anything that tries to map what I would say like the human
Mm.
or the energy of that human.
Mm-hmm.
So would you be able to sort of expand upon when you use the term blueprint for a human and whether that is related or there is any crossover with astrology or with other systems of knowledge around the individual and then how that relates potentially to collective blueprints?
Well, what we'd say is that those sorts of blueprints that have been mapped or intuited or discerned are aspects of design that exist within a collective reality experience for Earth. The best way that we could describe that is talking about a simulation. And there's lots of scientists now talking about simulation theory, which is wonderful. So if you imagine that every human that you know, at least, is sitting in a big room and they're all in their own little flight simulators, and everybody's flying their flight simulator, and there's a map of experience. So everybody has access to the same map of experience. And that same map of experience is the collective blueprint for human experience. And that is all the things you could possibly experience, whether it be themes of trauma or shame or excitement or joy or anything that could possibly happen. Let's say building an empire. Let's say being a soldier and dying in a war, being a monk, being a parent. Any of those themes are available to be played within that simulation experience. So there are wonderful beings in and out of this simulation experience who have the perception and the ability to say, oh, these are the maps and the themes. of what happens here, to give you a better understanding of how to play the game. And based on these particular patterns or algorithm, these are the most likely experiences you're going to have. Based on this particular pattern or geometry, these are the experiences that you're going to have more likely. What we find interesting is at this time, consciousness is expanding to such an extent within the players of the simulation, i.e. within the awakening humans, where they have reached the limits of the game. And they've come to the edge of the map in the simulation. And they have the courage and they are emboldened enough to actually start to move into the place where there is nothing. I can't see, there's nothing here for me, there's no signs, it's no man's land, but I'm not interested in anything the game has to offer me. And that's where those patterns for design and the geometries that you're speaking about and those systems and structures don't seem to be as powerful or relevant.
Yeah.
So within it, they're incredibly useful and valid. Once you start to cross that threshold into the great unknown and you now become the creator for your reality, they're not really as valuable to you anymore. Because now whatever you choose to do and wherever you choose to go, your consciousness is now creating a new part of the map. You're now creating the collective experiences for the next generations of humanity to engage with. And you see this now because there are some humans now who are just stretching their way out there and really being comfortable in that space and doing the things that arise within them naturally. And suddenly everybody's doing it. Suddenly everybody's on board with these new ideas. Suddenly everybody's discovering these new ways of being or thinking or walking because that's now available on the map. And more people are being pushed to the edge where they want something new. So that's when this golden evolution era happens, because it happens very quickly now, because so many people are kind of saturated with the game experience and they want to add something new.
So is that what the masters that have incarnated on this planet, like the analogy I often think of is like popcorn, right? We all pop at different times, but there's been masters that popped very early to give us an example of what mastery is and what we have the potential to step into. Have they been off the map for a lot longer? They've sort of come, they've had that experience and then gone, or is it a different experience for?
Well, we do both really, because we've got to be in the map to be able to say, well, we're in the map and this is where people are and this is what people do, to be able to lead them to the edge of the map. And once you're on the edge of the map and you can see what the map is and what it does, then you can lead them into the space beyond that. Or more accurately, you can point to it.
Yep.
And say, there it is. So yes, crossing the threshold into the unknown. But you know, many humans have been sitting with one foot in one world and one foot on the map and one foot off the edge of it for quite some time now. It's not a comfortable place to be.
Yeah, for sure.
Because there's no stability in the part that's off the map. Not that you can see. The only stability you find there is yourself. There's nothing external to lean on. Not yet.
Yeah. Would you say that's the inverted nature of reality that we miss out on, is that the true security is in the divine, it's in the unknown? Like the only thing that's certain is uncertainty. Like
well, it's where you meet the stability in yourself.
Yeah, right.
Because you realize that there's nothing else to hold on to. And there's many people gathering in that space now. You're in that space.
Yeah.
And what's the only thing that's stable? It's your own sense of, I've got to keep going, but it's also discovering other people that are there too. And there's a bunch of people there who are saying, well, we don't really know what we're doing. I'm one of them.
Yeah.
I don't really know what I'm doing out here. And sometimes I wander in and out, but isn't it wonderful how many of us are standing here now
Yeah.
And we collectively, we don't really know what we're doing, but gee, it's nice to meet you.
Yeah, I love that. That's the resonance, right? Like that's
That's the
the
resonance.
yeah, it's a shared experience of yeah, wow, we're on the edge of something. There's anticipation. It's Christmas Eve, as you keep saying, like we
Yeah.
know there's presents coming and yeah, but we don't know what they are, and I think I think, to use that analogy, that's when Christmas, like life loses a bit of its magic once you start to know exactly what present you're getting for Christmas.
Exactly.
Whereas being able to sit back and just going, hey, I'm open, I really want a new experience, whatever that may look like.
And can you feel that? I mean, I can feel it with people listening in this moment because, there's no linear time in these conversations. Is that excitement just to discover other people who are in the same place as you
Yeah.
without having to have any answers?
I think
Yeah.
we've talked about it briefly once before, but the question that came up in a call was what is community in this energy? And I think you just nailed it there. It's resonance, not based on any specific belief or any specific mind-based knowledge or it's a resonance based on that feeling within us, that desire for pure creative energy to express. And to be able to share that in a way with others in our reality that are going through a similar expansion, I guess. I know in my reality, yeah, like the last decade, I guess, there's been a lot more resonance on that level rather than resonance because of my job and status or, what I choose to do for recreation or those sort of community-based things. It's been a lot more around, hey, we know there's more to life. I can feel it. I feel that within you. I love the good old namaste. Like I think that's such a beautiful,
Yeah.
phrase because yeah, it feels light to even have this conversation with you, Rebecca, and know that there are other people that are resonating with it at the same time.
Absolutely. And it's so reassuring to me personally, actually, because even as I'm hearing this, the aspect of my personality is hearing it and feeling reassured that it's okay not to have the answers. And actually, maybe that's where the new sense of stability is. Because if we think we have a concrete answer, I think of the concrete block. Am I tethering myself to a concrete block
Yeah,
that
sure.
won't enable me to continue to expand as much as I possibly can?
Yeah. Well,
It's
it's
interesting. Sorry.
go.
I was going to say it's interesting when I first started doing channeling in a more public way. I remember Saint Germain actually coming through and saying, he showed me a piece of paper that was burning. And he said, you have to be willing to burn everything that you hear. Everything that we say to you, everything that we say to other people, you have to be willing to burn it afterwards.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was thinking, okay. But now I realize it's because it enables me to not become attached to anything or any perspective so that it can continue to expand.
Yeah. Well, you just expressed exactly what I was going to express. Like
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
no, that's exactly what I was going to say. I love how the masters, they're not looking for people to become followers of one specific form of knowledge. It's about this is going to evolve. What comes through you as the masters evolve. So it's not like, hey, this is what we did back in Atlantis, and this is what you guys should be doing now. It's, hey, this is expressions of wisdom, and this is I forget how the masters phrase it once, but they said we're always going to give you wisdom that is expanding and evolving so that you can't really go back and go, well, I'm going to tether myself to what you said last year. It's like, no, like this is always going to grow. It's always going to evolve.
That's the nature of life. And it can be the nature of the mind too. Not only as we talked about in terms of trying to make things concrete, but also within communities. And they're just making me aware in this moment that this is an important point to make. It's one thing to find resonance and come together with people because you have shared views and you're in a similar place. But it's another thing to create your connections with those people in a concrete way based upon what you believe to be true. Because that's when you start to get rigidity in community, and that's when you start to get exclusion.
Mm.
And I'm just reminded in this moment of when we first started to do more community gatherings and groups out of Perth in Australia, because that's where I started. And I used to hold like weekly, channelings and things, and I loved it. It ran for a number of years, and it was a wonderful way to meet other people and who were in a similar space, and I was always learning something new. And what I realized was that after a couple of years of doing this, maybe 3 or 4 years of doing this, we tended to get the same people coming all the time. And it was great because I could really see them expanding, and many of them became great friends. But I thought, this is interesting because it's almost becoming fixed.
Yeah.
And so one night I was guided to invite some people who really didn't have too much to do with this group, but were curious. And I didn't tell the rest of the group that they were coming. And I brought 3 new people in as my guest. And it was fascinating to see the
Yeah.
upset and the disruption and the roles appearing. And there was an energetic attempt at reorganization that happened within the group. And the following week, we stopped. We didn't do any more. That was it.
Yeah.
Because the master showed me in that moment that it was becoming too concrete.
Yep.
It was becoming too much of a closed community. So that was a really wonderful awareness and lesson for me at that time.
Yeah. Well, I've often wondered, Rebecca, like I have resonated with your work and the master's work very deeply, but I've also been cautioned, I guess, by the masters in attaching myself to any person or wisdom in that student-teacher paradigm, the dualistic nature of that. And I've still sort of been contemplating how to walk that line of being grateful for yourself and the masters and this sort of wisdom that enables my expansion without attaching my identity to, hey, I'm going to study this and I'm going to do, like this is, gospel, so to speak.
Yes.
So do you have any advice, I guess, for anybody that might be feeling the same or has been in a community that has maybe started to feel a little bit rigid, or they're starting to question maybe something that they've believed very heavily for a long time and it's helped them grow and it's helped them evolve and it's been really purposeful, but maybe they're outgrowing or they're getting to that point of, rigidity within their own community?
A great question, Chris. Thank you for your wisdom. Absolutely. We tend to think that we have a loyalty to wisdom. We have a loyalty to a teacher that teaches it. We have a loyalty to the source of that information. But the only loyalty we really are required to have as humans, and the only devotion that is required, is the devotion to the source within. And if something is resonating with you, that's an opportunity for your expansion. If it's not necessarily, or there's no excitement in it anymore, or it's not stimulating to you, then you're expanding into something else. And that's the loyalty. The loyalty is to your continued evolution of consciousness. And that's all that matters. That's all that matters, because that's what's going to assist everybody in this reality. And people have, often said to me over the years, look, I'm emailing you to let you know I've been doing this with you for a long time, and now I'm moving in a different direction. And we're always absolutely delighted.
Yeah.
Because it means that they're now evolving into something else.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Absolutely delighted.
Well, and the exact same way, I guess the masters show you that early on, right? Like to also not get stuck in your own identity of teacher or channeler or whatever that looks like for yourself, right? Rather than just saying, hey,
Right.
I'm Rebecca, that I'm expressing in this way. And if it resonates, show up,
Yeah.
and if it doesn't, like, great.
Yeah. It's all for my own viewing pleasure also.
Yeah.
So, and then how delightful to be able to have these conversations and meet people such as yourself. And I mean, I feel so blessed. to be able to continually deepen my own awareness through conversations like this. So
Yeah,
blessed. May they never end.
absolutely. And that's, I feel so grateful for the people I have in my life that this verbal expression is huge for me as far as the way that I show up in this reality. And I've got so much gratitude for my wife. Like I think sometimes like she just must think, God, Chris, like you don't shut up. But it's not that. She's always super grateful that when she hasn't had the capacity maybe to study or research or read as being a mother, she hasn't. I know she's super grateful that as I'm expressing what I'm learning and how I'm expanding and growing, that is a way that she's been able to also expand and grow. So I've been able to share my perceptions and growth with her. And she gets to question it too. And we have some really, really deep life conversations around that. And I know for me, I feel a huge amount of resonance in these conversations, with yourself, with the community members that I've met, with my business partner, like, and that's for me, that's a lot of juice in life there. And even my kids, like I love, man, the chats with the kids right now, and the way that they view the world and the questions they have and their expansion. And, that's not necessarily a spiritual conversation or whatnot, but it's an expansive conversation. And that feels really good personally.
Well, if it's curious and exciting to you, then it is a spiritual conversation
Yeah.
because that's the hallmark of spirit, right?
Yeah.
Expansion.
I've
It's
been
funny,
contemplating
you just,
curiosity. I think just the word curiosity, if you can like have that just like, tumbling around in your consciousness, like I've started to realize I think it is one of the core essences of the divine is curiosity. Like,
yes,
you
it
know, I'm
sure
not sure if we
is.
have time for it now. How are we doing for time? Like in a book, Conversations with God, and
Mm,
they talk about sort of the creation story, I would say, at the beginning of that. And I tend to believe it's quite accurate. I'd love if you could expand upon it, but from my understanding in that and a lot of other texts, in the beginning there was the void, right? And then through contemplation and I'd say curiosity, all of this spawned. But yeah, if you could expand, Rebecca, I'd be,
well, another view of that is in the beginning there was the word.
yeah.
So there was a sound. Well, this is our current view. There is a sound, and sound emanates light, or the effect of sound is light. And then light itself begins to refract and play itself out in a myriad of ways. So that's like the initial fractalization that occurs. And I love that because if we bring everything back to just sound and light, we can say in the beginning there was a void and out of that came sound. But to say that in the beginning there was sound
Mm,
is really beautiful and it's particularly important to you, Chris, in this moment, because when you realize that your ability to speak and express with your sound is creating universes, and
mm,
you are creating a universe of possibility by expressing your ideas, you realize just how sacred your sound is.
mm,
Because just in asking a question or sharing with your kids something, a new fractalization of possibility occurs. And it's so important because we've been taught to say, think before you speak. And yet, in my experience as a channeler, the opposite is true. I speak before I think. And that's what enables the wisdom to occur. Because if I thought about it before I said it, I would never be able to express it in a succinct way. And it would take far too long. And probably the translation wouldn't quite be right.
mm.
So
Yeah,
sound
that's,
must come first.
yeah. Oh, the fractals of thought that are going on right now for me, like, because I've been thinking about sound when it comes to cymatics
Mhm.
and the cymatics of the sound, the interaction with light, then creating form. And I think that's another whole conversation, but I think it's powerful. Like, I love that thought that it is sound. Um, that really ripple, because that to me says ripple again, you know, it's that
Yes,
rippling throughout
it's
that
so
fabric.
powerful.
Yeah.
It's so powerful. So if we start to relax into the not knowing and then speak before we think, some amazing things can happen.
Mm. Oh, so powerful, Rebecca. I feel like that's a really powerful spot maybe to wrap today up, because people might want to just lean back and just sit in that awareness, because I know that's what I want to do right now is
Yes.
lean back into that. And wow, thank you so much again.
Yeah.
Like it, I'm
Thank you
just
too.
loving, yeah, loving the expansion of what we get to express right now.
I know it's wonderful. And being the wonder of, I wonder what we're going to say next.
Yes, absolutely. Who knows what today's going to show up right now? Like, I
Who
love that.
knows?
Um,
Yeah, I love that too.
yeah, for anybody that wants more of Rebecca's work, just your name right, RebeccaDawson.com is probably the key
That's
spot to
it.
go and check it out.
Yep.
Yeah, there's
Pretty simple.
yeah, I like that. It's simple, but yeah, I love that it honors the personality too, right? Like it's showing Rebecca as yeah, Rebecca from Perth
Well,
originally.
that was deliberate at the time, or deliberately directed to do so, and it was very uncomfortable, but now I can see why.
Yeah. Well, it's
Yeah.
amazing. Well, I highly recommend anyone listening today that hasn't checked out Rebecca's work, go and check it out. If you want to follow my journey with my kids, I post a bit of stuff on Instagram. The Conscious Australian Dad is my handle, and I'm having a lot of fun there. Yeah, it's a journey, as we know, to express the authenticity that we spoke about in that first call. And yeah, that's my desire for everybody on this call is to maybe sit back in that awareness and start to express some more of their own individualized divinity.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
No worries, Rebecca. Thanks again, and yeah, we look forward to chatting again soon.
Thank you.
Namaste.